Right, folks, welcome to a VanillaSoft webinar. And today, you might not know me too well. I'm kind of new around here, and I'll be honest with you. This is in at the deep end for me. And the VanillaSoft team said to me, "Hey, let's see what you got. Let's bring along some of your buddies, some of your friends, and let's throw a killer webinar." So I thought, well, where do you start? And that starts with two of the hottest guests in the game right now. You might have heard of the 30 Minutes to President's podcast. I certainly have. Maybe one day I'll get to go on it. I'd love to. But these guys are interviewing everyone who is just an exceptional performer, a top-class leader in their field. And they're super, super high-performing sales reps as well. They're not, speakers who go on all the conferences and the podcasts and didn't sell too much this year. They're selling a lot this year, and they're doing it super well. So I'm going to go through some very quick ground rules, and then I'm going to introduce my two guests, and we're going to get right into it. I want to pack this session full of as much actionable and tactical takeaways you can start plugging in right now. So my ground rules are, just in case anybody wants to ask, this is being recorded. You'll get sent a recording of the whole session, whether you have to jump off in 10 minutes or in half an hour, or some of you won't have made it live. This is being recorded, so watch out in your email inbox. And feel free to use the chat if you have any questions. Let us know where you're dialing in from and everything like that. We're quite lucky to have people from all around the world. So some people it's morning, some people it's night, something in the middle. It's late evening for me, but I'm just happy to be here with Nick and Arman from the 30 Minutes to President's Club. So I won't introduce them. I'll let them do this, but I'm pumped for this session. So welcome on, guys. Thanks for being here.
We made it. Ollie, amazing. You guys want to hear a story about Ollie? Ollie said he's in the deep end over here. I actually met Ollie because he was the person who was coordinating my interview on the John Barrows podcast, the Make It Happen Mondays podcast. And Ollie ain't in the deep end because Ollie is part of the reason we started the show, because I saw the way that he prepped and I was like, oh my God, we can do something amazing here. I'm seeing how the sausage is made. So super stoked to be here, guys. Thanks for having us.
Geez, seeing how the sausage is made. Couldn't give Ollie a higher compliment right there. I love it. We're pumped to be here, Ollie. This is going to be a really fun one.
If it wasn't a dream start to a webinar like that, then I don't know what is. So I'm just thankful you guys are here. So, okay, let's get right into it then. So why are we actually here? So what's going to make people do better in 2021 than they did last year? I think we're all kind of glad that 2020's gone with, and hopefully this year is going to be a bit better and we can all get past what was. So where do we start with having a killer Q1? That's the start to a great 2021. Just generally, guys, before we go into the whole flow of this, and we've planned out a few talking points here, what have we learned and what are we trying to do a bit better than we did last year?
Look, when you're looking at your Q1, everybody talks about the New Year's resolution. Everybody talks about the new thing they're going to do, the new diet they're going to go on. But it all comes down to one thing usually. And there's one thing that usually starts in January, that usually stops in February, and it certainly is dead by March. And that is how you build your life around certain routines and processes. And so today we're going to go through a little talk that we call how to be a machine. Okay. So there are 4 pieces of that. The first part is your morning routine, how you start your day off on the right note. The second piece is, once you have that set up, how do you plan your attack? How do you plan your day? How do you plan your quarter? How do you get ready for what's coming to you so that you're mentally primed to get into it? Number 3, we're going to talk about how you attack your plan. When you're getting after it, how can you be as efficient as possible? And then number 4, everybody has quote unquote Zoom fatigue. Everybody is sick of the Zoom one-on-ones. Everybody's freaking fatigued, and you gotta breathe. And that's going to be step number 4. So number 1, morning routine. Number 2, plan your attack. Number 3, attack your plan. And then number 4, breathe. Nick, what did I miss?
Well, look, if you follow these 4 pillars here, what you're able to do is you're able to work at a much higher sustainable output than your competition. That means the companies you're competing against, the sales reps on your team you're competing against. And when you're able to do these things, you can carry a larger volume of pipeline, close more deals, make more money, and actually not go insane. So, Armand, you want to get into the morning routine, talk about some best practices there?
Let's do it. And so y'all got hit with COVID. Everybody got hit with COVID in March, and everybody was sad, and everyone stopped working out. And all of a sudden, you're getting fat. I'm getting fat. You're eating whatever you want. Everyone thought, oh, I'd be eating at home more often. I'll be healthier in COVID. No, you hear about the COVID-15. And so all this stuff comes down to how you start your day. If you start your day with eating junk, if you start your day with waking up late, you're going to be in a horrible ride. And so this is the morning routine, a couple pieces of it. Okay, you got to start the day on your terms, not on your boss's terms, not on my terms, not on your wife's terms, your husband's terms, not on your kids' terms. And I know everybody who has kids is going to start making excuses out there. No excuses. All right. So first thing you got to do is you wake up. You wake up early in the morning, whatever you got to do to complete the rest of this morning routine, which we'll go through in a second. So you wake up on the first snooze. When you wake up on anything but the first snooze, you are literally telling yourself, I am going to repeat the worst part of the day over and over and over again. And that's how you're going to start your day. That is not how you start a machine morning routine. And so that's step number 1. And that comes straight from the book, The Miracle Morning. Number 2, go wash your face, do your thing, sit back down, read 15 minutes, whatever you want. It can be fiction, it could be nonfiction, it could be something. But do something to get yourself in professional development mode. I read probably 30 minutes every single morning so that I get to work on me. I don't have to worry about what my boss breathing down my neck at work. Number 3, you have to work out. You might screw up the first snooze, you might do the reading, but you have to get moving in some way. Nick likes to clean his house, that's moving. I like to go for a run, that's working out. You can't go to the gym, go do a 7-minute push-out routine, do what you gotta do. But you have to get moving. If the president of the United States, not Trump, Obama, can find a way to work out in the morning, then you can find a way to work out too. What did I miss, Nick?
Armand, the big thing that people screw up here is what you're doing is you're starting the day from a proactive perspective, right? You're starting the day and you're saying the number one thing that I'm going to prioritize today is Armand Ferrell. What most people do is they wake up, they hit the snooze button, Okay, fine, I'm getting out of bed. Oh man, I'm feeling kind of groggy. My voice, I got a frog in my throat. And then the first thing they do before they even get out of bed is they look at this thing. They look at their phone. They're scrolling through Instagram and they're looking at their work emails. And of course, there's some emergency that they've got to handle or some stressful thing at work because that's work, that's life. We get stress thrown at ourselves. But when you start the day with yourself, reading, positive self-talk, getting a workout in, all of a sudden you've got this armor on you where even if your whole day blows up, you spent 30 minutes reading, developing yourself, you spent some time actually exercising. Armand, I got to tell you, I've taken your advice recently and I've been working out in the mornings. And something that I've noticed that I actually really, really like about it, because I like working out, but not every single day sometimes. I've been working out every day. And what's cool is if you work out first thing in the morning super early, by the time you actually wake up and the caffeine hits your brain, you're like 2/3 done with the workout. So I'm kind of in your camp now. Start the day with a workout.
Alrighty.
All right, guys, I got a question coming in here, and I was thinking this personally as well. So not everybody actually does that, or at least some of us try it, and it's quite difficult sometimes. There's always a bit of circumstance or situation at play. But if everyone is trying to take a leaf out of your book there, is it best to just jump right in, straight at the deep end? Or is it best to maybe create some kind of gradual approach there where you're not going for straight at the 5 o'clock in the morning right away? You're going for maybe 7 and doing a quick workout and then a quick reading and then you're on to the day? Or is it better to go right for the jugular straight away?
Well, I got a couple things for you there, Ali. One, you don't have to start the workout at like 3 a.m. That's fine. And it doesn't need to be this insane CrossFit, make yourself puke on the living room floor because you're doing so many burpees. Like, you got to do something. It's better to be consistent with it. But what you need to do is make it as easy as possible for yourself to actually go and take action. And this will actually apply to the sales stuff that we're going to talk about today also. You want to set the board so that when it's actually time to execute on whatever you have to do, you just do it. An example, when we're talking about the gym, don't expect yourself to, like, in your groggy state, go fill up your water bottle and find your gym clothes and figure out what online workout you're going to do. Make those decisions the night before when it's easy, so that when the alarm goes off, you don't have to think. Your clothes are there, your water's ready, you've got the video queued up, and you just do it. So you got to set the board on those things, and it's a lot easier. Trying to do all of it at once, not realistic.
I've heard about how making your bed is just the small, really proactive thing that you can do that really sets yourself going. So just to reiterate, so we're going to get up nice and early, try and maybe read something like that, focus on our development personally, get us in the zone, hopefully do some movement of some kind, maybe a workout or cleaning, get out for a walk, whatever that may be. Anything else that we missed there?
No, I think that's about it. And to answer your question, Ollie, the other thing that's important is, hey, nail one thing. And the one thing you probably need to nail at the beginning is the workout. If all you do is for the next 2 weeks, wake up in the morning and work out first thing in the morning, then that's a win. Then you can add reading to that. Then you can add one other thing to that. You don't have to shotgun approach the entire thing. I do think that discipline creates a ton of freedom, but a lot of people need to start with one thing. Go start with working out in the morning. That's it.
Love it. Okay,
All
so
right.
why don't we move on to how you plan your day and how you start to attack it. So from that, we're starting up doing whatever it may be to get something done, to achieve something in the morning. What rough time do you guys actually, and let's start with Nick, what time do you start planning the day? Or is this something you do before, like the night before? How do you approach it?
Yeah, so I do two types of planning. One, at the beginning of the week on Sunday night, I look at my calendar ahead and I actually map out every single meeting that I have on the calendar. And I usually just write a sentence or two on okay, where do I need to be headspace wise on this? So I have a sense of like what the big this is taken from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. They call it the big rocks you have in the week. Maybe there's a big red lines call that I have with a potential customer, and I really need to make sure I do some prep for that. I want to take myself through the week because then I sort of get a sense of, okay, what days are going to be more intense than others? What days might I need to get up a little bit earlier? When I actually do, so that's sort of on a weekly level. On a daily level, every single night before I go to bed, I write in my journal. We'll talk about this a little bit in the breathe section, but I think self-reflection and having a sense on what went well today, what's the game plan for tomorrow, is really, really important to do on a daily basis. So before I go to bed every single night, I actually open up my journal and I write out again all the meetings that I have for the next day. This is duplicative, but I want it to be ingrained in my head so I'm not thinking and having to be too dependent upon notifications I get on my Outlook. Oftentimes what I figure out is, oh man, okay, I'm doing a VanillaSoft webinar at 7 in the morning. I probably need to get up an hour earlier to get that workout in, because I'm sure as heck not doing this thing without having my blood flowing and a little caffeine in my system.
One of the things that's helpful for me is your calendar becomes a moving target. And so oftentimes your golden hours are going to be 8 to 3 p.m. And so everything 8 to 3, if you're spending time sending out proposals, building presentations, researching accounts, then you have not properly planned on the front end. And so Nick's example is I do the same thing where on Sunday I'm looking forward and I'm getting in the right headspace and I'm prepping ahead for all of those calls. As calls start to get thrown on my calendar throughout the week, from 3 to 4 is my admin time. And so from 3 to 4, I'm bucketing all of my recap emails and all of my call prep for the next day. And if I have proposals to build out, that's from 4 to 5. And then from 5 and beyond, it's list building, it's pulling accounts, it's research. And then right back in 8 to 3, because I had those sessions from 4 to 5 and from 3 to 4, I'm able to plan that next day and put time blocks on my calendar so that when I get in at 8 a.m., I'm locked and loaded and I can jump right into a dial blitz, right into 3 customer calls. When I get off the customer calls, I already know that I'm jumping right back into a dial blitz and there's no lag. Way too many people get stuck in context switching where they lose 30-minute chips of their day at a time. And that is the death of the average sales rep. Every single person needs to learn how to manage their day. And the way you manage your day is bucketing all of your planning together so that you can sprint for 8 hours straight during the day. And that's by proper planning and preparation for your day.
So your entire day on your, maybe it's Google Calendar, whatever you may be using, are you literally 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, the whole entire day? Or are you making it task driven? So maybe your, your lunchtime area says this client send email, this client send email, or are you just naming what type of thing you're doing throughout each point of the day?
Right. It's types of things. And so you don't want to get it's very easy to get over caught in the weeds on planning where it's like, send this email in these 5 minutes and then the next email in the next 5 minutes. What you try to do is, in the spirit of sprinting, you need some room to sprint. And so I'll try to line up my customer calls back to back to back to back. So all my discovery calls and all my demos are lined up, whether it's from 10 to 1 or from 9 to whenever. And then from that point on, I usually have a couple of hours that start to get a little bit crowded. And I know I need to start blocking off prospecting time. And a lot of reps are afraid to block off their calendar. I know every single day during the hours of 8 to 3, I need 2 hours of prospecting time. And so once a day starts to get crowded, I will typically put 2 cold call blocks or 1 cold call block and then 1 task blasting block. And so if you're on VanillaSoft, you probably have a bunch of email tasks that you need to knock out or a bunch of follow-up tasks you need to knock out. You want to have 2 1-hour blocks in those golden hours where you can just focus on those things.
All right, I have to ask Nick something now. So it can be difficult if your management is a little bit, maybe let's just say they're not quite sure about that approach for whatever reason that may be. Possibly at some point there's a internal team call, right? And you got to jump into the team call at 4 o'clock, and maybe you have the one-to-one coaching at noon, right? And you're starting off at 9 o'clock with a new product release training or something like that. So maybe there is a couple of occasions where you don't totally own your own schedule. So what advice can we give to people who are, going to try and apply what you're talking about here, but there's going to be a couple obstacles? Is that okay? Can we breeze past it? Can we talk to management and maybe find some new agreement? What can we do?
Yeah, I don't think that's a make or break sort of thing. If you need to get on an occasional product training and there's 40 people on it, you're not going to be the rep that makes a big stink about, hey guys, we need to move this thing. I think what you do need to do though is just respect those, show up on those, whatever. If you can own your calendar in all the other areas, you're in a good spot. One of the big things that Armand and I always try to do is we want to stack meetings. So example, one thing that a sales rep will typically do with the customers, go over a proposal together. And in any given day, you might have 3 or 4 different proposal calls. And what the average sales rep does is they say, all right, I'm going to do a proposal review call at 8. I'm going to do one at 1. I'm going to do one at 3. And I'm going to do one at 5:30. Well, the problem is Armand talked about task switching or code switching all throughout the day. You're better off actually stacking all of those back to back to back. So I know I'm going to do 4 proposal calls all between 1 and 3 o'clock. What happens then is you get in a certain headspace and you actually start to ramp and warm up. And then once you're done with that last call, you can move on to the next thing. So I'm in the same camp as Armand. What you want to do is look at your calendar for any given day. And you don't want there to be any white space, meaning unstructured time where you don't have something planned out. Example, you might have a product training or an internal coaching call. Great, you need to keep that on your calendar. Look at the rest of the white space and what you need to do. And actually, I'll do the same thing as Armand. You create a calendar event for here's my work block. I'm going to blast out all my tasks. Here's a prospecting block. So that when you get out of that meeting, you're never in the spot where it's like, I wonder what I'm going to do next. What you want to do is make all of your decisions up front about how you're going to spend your time so that when it's time to actually spend that time, you're just worried about executing. You're not trying to think and execute because those things end up running into each other.
I love that. Okay, Armand, should we move on to attacking the day or do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think there's one last thing before we get into attacking your plan. One of the things we're going to talk about is everything that you do. Nick talked about setting up the board in the right way. And we are horrible at remembering things and trying to remember the sequence of events that we tend to take when we're prospecting. And so every single thing you do, you need to break it down into chronological order before you do it. And so, for example, give you a great example of something that people tend to repeat thinking about every single time is account research. And so let's say I'm researching 20 accounts. What most people tend to do is they start getting caught in the wormhole of, this account's really interesting. Maybe I'll go on their Crunchbase page. Maybe I'll go on their website. Maybe I'll go on their LinkedIn. Maybe I'll look at this person. I'll look at his college. Did anything cool happen at that college? And the next thing you know, 20 minutes has been sunk into one account. You know what your buyer triggers are. You know what you need to look for before you look for it. Write those 10 things down and stack rank them and make sure that you look for those things in that order. And so I know, for example, at Pave, that what I'm looking for is, first thing is I need to make sure an account is above 100 employees. First thing I'm doing is I'm checking their LinkedIn employee account. Second thing I need to do is I need to know they have US based employees. So I'm checking their geography. Third thing I got to do is I got to make sure that they have funding. So I'm going to Crunchbase. From that point on, there are 3 things after that I know if they have those 3 things, that they're a hot account. I'm going to look for those things next versus just wandering. And I can crank through 50 accounts in probably 2 hours and have them fully researched and tailored as opposed to just wandering. You can do this in a million different places. You can also do this in your sequences. When you're writing out your drip cadences, don't reinvent the wheel every single time. You know, the first email is an intro email, the second email is a bubble up, the third email is whatever it might be. So have your structure laid out. Map out all of your touches first, and then write each one quickly as opposed to getting caught in the weeds on every single individual email.
I love that. Okay.
That's
So
it.
it feels
We
like
can go
we're
to-
starting to talk a little bit about discipline, a bit about planning and keeping extremely productive throughout the day. So if we're starting our actual day after the, getting ready in the morning, planning the day, what's the best way that I can stay productive? I feel like sometimes there's a lot of Slack, there's a lot of email replies that come in from my outbound and all these kinds of things. They can come up, maybe the phone rings. So this all designed to take us away from what we need to be doing. So how can I be the master of that? And how can I get rid of these distractions so I can do everything that I need to do?
So the number one thing you got to do is crank the wheel. What that means is, Armand said he and I are pretty terrible at remembering things. It's true. And I'm horrible when it comes to multitasking. No human being can actually multitask. It's a myth. It's fake. Don't try it. So what you want to do is live through those blocks that we talked about on your calendar. A block that I'll set is time for email. I've got 3 or 4 different 30-minute email blocks where if you put 4 email blocks on your calendar, you don't need to go check and check and check. The problem with a lot of people is that they get this dopamine rush when they get a new email in their inbox, especially in sales, because a new email could mean a reply to your prospecting message, a contract that was just signed, good news about your comp plan, although when does that ever happen? And so they're constantly going back to email to look for things to do. You can't do that. That's not an effective way to live. Slack is the same deal. Those are all distractions. Really, if you look at the way that you make money as a salesperson, it's doing 2 things. It's prospecting for new business and working business that's actively in your pipeline towards close. Those are the things that you should be spending 90% of your time on. So what you need to do is shut down Slack, close out of Outlook, which sounds incredible to say as a salesperson, but it's amazing how much you get done when you shut your email and just start picking up the phone and calling people. I'm living out of my CRM and my phone all day, every day. And what you should be doing, Ali, as you go through your calendar here, it's just what block am I in and what do I need to execute on? You're not looking at your Slack message. You're not looking in your email. I'm sure as heck not looking at my texts. One of the biggest things that impacted my productivity recently was I went to the notification setting on my phone and I shut off notifications for when I get text messages. The only time that my phone makes a noise is when somebody calls me. I don't need those other distractions. I'll catch up on Slack. I'll catch up on email. I'll catch up on my LinkedIn inbox when I'm in that block. But when I've decided that I'm doing a certain thing, I am only doing that certain thing. Armand, what'd I miss here?
I think that's totally on point. Again, you're sprinting through your blocks. Your days should be a continuous set of motion because you've planned on the back end. The other thing is when you're executing in those time blocks, you need to make sure that you've set up systems on the back end so that you can efficiently clear out your tasks, for example. Mm-hmm. And so every single time you handle an objection, you should make a task for that. Every single time you need to follow up with an opportunity, make a task for that. You need to live your life out of tasks and events because you can't time block. If you know your task blasting consists of looking at your pipeline, scrolling through your email to see who's given you an objection, looking at your VanillaSoft tasks and various other things, you cannot possibly time block when you have to look at all these different places. And so take anything that can be turned into a task and make a task for it, and then just sprint through those tasks. Live your life out of tasks and events. It's super important.
Okay, I have to ask Armand something here, right? So nobody wants to be unproductive. Obviously, we know that. but obviously it's going wrong somewhere for some people. And, everybody wants to try and get rid of Slack, or maybe it's just a habit. So where do people go wrong? Even though we are trying, where are people getting that wrong? Because everybody wants to maybe turn off Slack and really focus on their call, focus on the demo, focus on the cold calling and writing their emails, researching their accounts, all the things that they want to do and they have to do. But it somehow and somewhere goes wrong. Where do you think that happens most of the time?
The biggest place this tends to go wrong is if I don't have it closed out, then I will look at it. The notification bubble is the death. So I've taken Slack off my phone entirely. All the notifications are off. And then if I'm in a call blitz, I'm closing out the email entirely. The Google notifications are off. I'm closing out the Slack as well. You got to take the snacks out of the pantry. If the snacks aren't in the pantry, you have to leave the house to go buy some, and you're not going to leave the house to go buy some. And so you got to do the same thing with your Slack and your email. You have to completely remove it from the table, because nobody has the mental discipline when they see their boss's Slack tag popping up 10 times mid cold call to say completely focused.
Hey, Armand, I got one to add to that, because I got that the other day. My boss sent me a Slack message, and I saw the little bubble, and I'm like, I can't resist it. One of the things you can do is you start training everybody that you're just going to use the phone. The phone is the most effective thing for a salesperson. We talk about it all the time with prospecting, but I actually think for everything else also, moving deals, getting stuff done internally. I got a Slack from my boss. He had a couple questions about my pipeline, and they were written out in a message. And you know what I did? I picked up the phone and I called him. And what would have been a 10-minute exercise in me writing everything out in a response that still would not have been clear, we got it done in 2 minutes on the phone. So start training your colleagues, your opportunities, that you're going to use the phone. They email you, you call them. They Slack you, you call them. You can set the standard for how you're going to communicate, and the phone is the fastest and the medium of communication that communicates the most information.
All right, so Nick's got me thinking here, and I have to ask each of you one question each. I'll go to Nick first, and then Arman, if you can take the second one, I think we're in a good spot. So what happens, Nick, if you think, let's call, we have an email reply from the prospect, right? We're going to get the phone, we're going to call them, and we're going to answer that question that they had. What do you think happens if they're not that receptive to phone calls sometimes? Maybe they're just not that type of person. Would you try to go with the LinkedIn message, or would you try to go with the email reply sometimes if it's maybe a deal that's nearing close and you think, okay, well, I'm going to go with what is working for them, or are you still going with the phone because it's productive and that's what you're trying to focus on? Which way are you going with that?
Well, I'm not some bully who's just shoving the poor software engineer and forcing him to take my call if the person is visibly uncomfortable. I think if you get the sense, this is something Armand and I always try to do. I call it being disarmingly blunt. If you get the sense of something, you need to call it out. So if I call someone and it's very obvious that they're uncomfortable on the phone or that they prefer email, you can just say, hey, Ollie, I'm kind of getting the sense that phone is probably not the best way to get in touch with you. I know you're probably slammed this time of year. What is the best way for me to communicate with you? And then, shocker, the customer will tell you the truth, and then you can actually communicate the way they prefer to be communicated with. So I think it's simple as asking. You don't have to be a jerk. My bias is the phone. And so if someone's emailing me, I sure would like the opportunity to say, hey, I prefer to communicate on the phone. And I think my customers appreciate that too.
Love that. Okay, and then my question for Arman there is, Nick was talking about how to over communicate to your bosses and to your colleagues, your peers, people like that. So I wondered, what do you think is the best approach when maybe you're talking to your manager and setting that expectation? How do we go about doing that as a rep? Because, if they're very good at Slack, maybe, and they're getting, like Nick was saying, they're asking you a bunch of questions and it's a very long message, 35 bullet points, and you think, oh my gosh, how do I deal with this? It's going to take me an hour to write. So what do we do there? Do we pick up the phone and say, hey, look, it works better for me personally on the phone. Is that okay? How do we approach that conversation, and how do we set that expectation to them?
Yeah, for sure. I think, I don't know. This is tricky because if you've got a manager who's doing that, like, probably not a very good sales manager, and that's a different conversation. If if you are incentives aligned with your sales manager, then that means your sales manager makes money when you make money. And that means if they're even half worth their weight as a sales manager, they know you need to be spending your time on core selling activities. That said, you have to do things like pipeline reviews and forecasts, right? It's part of our business. It's part of our job. And so a couple different ways you can get around it. The first is you can have a standing later afternoon meeting with your boss X times per week so that he gets all of that information that he needs or she needs, and it's all bucketed in one period of time. And so I would do that with my manager because he would come up, he'd be like, what's going on with this deal? What's going on with this deal? I'd be like, hold on. Like Tuesdays and Fridays in the afternoon, you and me, it's pipe time. You can ask me all the questions you want in that 30-minute interval. I'll come prepared with my pipeline. All my next steps and close dates and amounts will be updated, and you can grill me on anything you want. Everything else, I've got to be tunnel vision here, and that's why I'm number one right now. He was like, okay, I got it. And then from there, he was more informed than he was before because we had a cadence and it was time blocked. And so again, this goes back to the previous concept. Try to time block anything that pulls you outside of your workflow.
I love that. So is it fair, both of you guys, is it fair to say your routine and your discipline to that is kind of like the superpower that is letting you get on with it and just achieve, like the title of this webinar, we're talking about 200% quota. Is the discipline and the routine the big key thing here?
Yeah. Discipline is doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it. And sometimes that's waking up at 5:15 and cranking out push-ups for 35 minutes. But when you're disciplined in the way that you structure your time and then disciplined in the way that you execute on that structure, good things start to happen.
I love it. I love it. Okay, guys. So shall we move into breathe, the final part here today? Or do we want to add something to how we attack our day?
This is my favorite part. It's the breathing, because look, if you've drawn these, first of all, you're waking up at 5 or 6 in the morning and you're cranking out a workout and you're reading and you're doing personal development, and then you've structured your calendar so there's no white space, and then you're executing like a beast for a full workday, you've got to make sure that you spend some time recovering. We typically talk about recovery in the sense of, okay, I did a hard workout, but you also need to recover mentally. And I think one area that I see a lot of sales reps fall into this trap of is they listen to a webinar like this and they say, oh man, I'm all revved up. I'm going to be a beast tomorrow. And then they work a 15-hour day and they slug 7 Red Bulls. And then they carry that on for 2 or 3 days. And then they wake up at the end of the week and they're like, this isn't sustainable. I can't do this. And then they give up and they go back to their old habits. So something that Armand and I talk about is you've got to work at the highest sustainable output. And so there's certain things you can do when it comes to the workday's done so that tomorrow you're able to crank the wheel again. One of the biggest things that I've started doing is end of the workday, shut your Outlook, shut your Slack again, and you don't go back to work mode. You've got to have a very clear line of when you're working and when you're not. Because what you want to do is you want to get your brain into relaxation mode as quickly as possible when the workday ends. That doesn't happen if you jump back in Outlook one last time at 8:15 before you go to bed. Armand, what are some other things we do to breathe so the next day we can hit it hard?
To that point, you've got to stop being so available to everybody. One of the books we love to read always says, like, be irritatingly difficult to reach. And oftentimes we say yes to everything. I'll pick apart an AE's calendar and they have 7 recurring one-on-ones that are weekly one-on-ones with people who aren't even on their team. They're not managing them. They're not managing the other person. And I'm just like, why do you have 7 recurring one-on-ones? That's literally 3.5 hours every single week. 10% of your time as a sales rep is literally dedicated to one-on-ones that have nothing to do with you hitting your number. Plus you have all your team meetings, plus you have all your sales calls, plus everything else. You have to say no. I remember there was one time I asked for a recurring one-on-one with our COO over at Quota, and he was like, I don't think we need to do that. And I was like, sort of pissed off. I was like, really? Like, dude, like I'm like one rung away from you. Like I'm running a team of 40 reps. Like we don't need to do that. And what I found is he was living his life out of the events of the day. And when he needed to have meetings, he would have meetings around projects around doing. And so I still got to meet with the guy 2 to 3 hours per week, and he protected his calendar. And so you've got to protect yours. You got to say no to the BS. There are times where everybody has 40 hours in the week. And for whatever reason, Nick and I will have twice as many sales calls as the other people. And somehow we're able to crank out twice as many dials. And it's because we were able to cut out all the excess in the middle of the day and still use the same amount of hours and then shut it all off at the end of the day. And that lets you breathe. When you feel like you've gotten to do what you need to do during the day and your calendar isn't being run by other people, it gives you more confidence when you're able to personally shut off on your end.
Ali, one of the things you asked about earlier was, well, what happens when you've got that product training on your calendar in the middle of the day? What do you do? My previous answer was you don't want to be difficult or annoying, right? You're not trying to be a jerk to your colleagues, but at the same time, there's probably a good chance that that's going to be recorded. Or there's a chance that there's only 5 minutes of useful information and you can catch up with another AE on your team to get looped in. So if I'm listening to this, I think, okay, maybe I'm going to link up with another one of the high-performing AEs on my team, and we're going to alternate those product trainings. And they'll fill me in 1 week, I'll fill them in the next. Boom, you just freed up 2 hours a month right there. Armand and I also talk about you've got to shut off all the other noise in your life. So we talked about during the workday, that's your Slack and that's your email, that's the LinkedIn notification that you've got up all day. But you've also got to do the same, I think, in your personal life. So when you look at your personal email, one of the big things you got to do is unsubscribe from every single junk email that's showing up in your inbox. Just do it. It takes 2 minutes to, not even 2 minutes, it takes 2 seconds to unsubscribe from an email, and then you never have to worry about that clutter and advertisement in your inbox again. The other thing that seems kind of crazy, but made a huge impact on my personal relationships and mental well-being was I went on a muting and unfollowing spree on Facebook and Instagram. And so what happens when I go on my Facebook now is I've literally unfollowed every single person that I'm friends with. And that includes my mom and my girlfriend, and they're not thrilled with me. But what it's changed social media for me into is I have to go out and seek somebody's updates as opposed to them being pushed at me. So I sometimes think, hey, I wonder how my best friend from high school is doing. Well, okay, instead of going on Facebook, I might actually call that person. But if I want, I can go on Facebook and look at their page and see their updates. So I think what you got to do is if something isn't serving, find a way to mute that and cut it out of your life. I think too many people tolerate just noise and static energy being thrown at their face. There's ways to shut that stuff off.
That's one thing I wanted to ask you guys. So, especially through lockdowns and stuff like that in the past year or so, it's been quite hard in patches of the year to get outside and to go and burn some physical energy, which I'm a big believer in. That really helps you sleep. That really helps you start the next day better. And it really does spiral from there. It's a snowball effect. So do you think that, when you finish work, is it not a bad thing? I don't want to paint that label, but is it not ideal if you start sitting and watching a couple hours of Netflix, or maybe you watch a movie and maybe you watch a series and, something else? Is that kind of addiction to being in front of a screen, just like we all are right now? We're all watching a screen. This is during our work day, but after our work day, I'm still going back into my living room here and there's still a TV. There's still a TV in the bedroom. I find that difficult, and that can stop you sleeping well. And that really does, like I said, it spirals down from there. So have you guys put any discipline into your day about where you stop and where you draw that line, or are you kind of experimenting with it, not thought about it? Where do you stand with that?
I like to cut off screen time about an hour before I go to bed, just because for whatever reason, like when I'm staring at my phone, like it sort of like bugs me, like all the notifications are going off. The TV, the Netflix thing, it honestly bugs me a little bit less. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are like, take Netflix out of your life, never watch TV again. And like, I'm going hard during the day so that when it's like 7 p.m., I can actually breathe a little bit. And if I want to watch a TV show, like I'll watch a TV show. Now, if it's keeping you up, for some people, like Netflix will keep them up, and I don't really know how that happens. Like, have a shut off time for yourself, but that's not really an issue for me. And so like, you don't have to like run your life like you're a drill sergeant.
So maybe Nick, you can coach me a little bit here. Let's call me out live on the fly. So I'm a young crazy guy who loves PlayStation, right? I love to play the games. It stimulates my brain. It's really escapism for me, especially this last year. It's been nice to like get out of your mind. You focus on something, and then you walk away from it, and it's done. It's not too consuming, and it's not physically burning, especially when it's cold as hell out and it's dark, stuff like that. So I get on the PlayStation maybe a couple hours, maybe a good few times a week after work. It's a nice chill out. I don't think it keeps me up too late at night, but I could certainly say I could get to bed earlier, stuff like that. Maybe my time of day that I eat isn't ideal. What kind of things do you think just from that maybe I could tweak and improve so that maybe tomorrow morning I wake up a little bit earlier and I do that physical exercise like we were saying. Maybe I get that time to read, all kinds of other things that I could do to just tweak that performance a little bit better. Because I think like we were saying, we don't have to jump right in and go for 100%. You can sort of gradually ease in a couple of these new things that we can do just to get a bit better. So where would you suggest for that I start?
So one of the things Armand said earlier was discipline creates freedom. And the same thing applies here. And I'm with Armand. If you worked the way that we described today, there's nothing wrong with playing a little bit of PlayStation before you go to bed. But what you need to do is take care of everything else that you need to first, so that it's your reward for the discipline. So what I mean by this is I'm the same as you. I like playing a little Xbox before I go to bed. Well, before I allow myself to go on the Xbox, I'm writing in my journal. It's part of my nightly routine. I'm washing my face, part of the nightly routine. I'm flossing and brushing my teeth. I'm setting out my workout clothes for the next day so that I've done everything that I need to do before I go to sleep, before I get on the Xbox. So I take care of all of those things, and I actually make it through that stuff faster. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to go floss my teeth because I know I've got the reward, which is for me playing the Xbox. So I think for you, Ali, recognize that, hey, it's something that actually helps you recover. You get into that different world, you're able to detach, but set yourself up so that, okay, once you shut the Xbox off at 8:30, you're able to get in bed and be asleep by 9:30. You don't have to worry about, shoot, I'm going to procrastinate flossing my teeth and I'm going to play a little bit longer. Just flip the order that you do those things.
I love that. Okay, so I need to see it more as a reward for doing all the things that I have to do, which set me up for tomorrow. So that we've just come off the back of a weekend. So that leads me to, is there anything different that you would do Saturday and Sunday? I mean, we hear sometimes like Mark Zuckerberg lays out his t-shirt the night before and it's the same t-shirt. I don't know if we have to go that far, but maybe Sunday nights, it's not that uncommon to check your email, maybe plan your week. Some people do the planning thing at the end of the weekend, or sometimes it's Sunday morning. How, maybe Armand, do you approach that? Do you just completely chill at the weekend? You leave it completely for downtime? Like you said, you deserve a cutoff if you're running at the pace that you are. Or are you trying to use it in a more strategic way, maybe taking some of the time during the weekend to get ahead? How do you do it?
Yeah. So for us, the podcast is, I mean, we both hold full-time jobs and we both hold a sales book. And so during the week, if we let the sales bleed into a Saturday morning, now we're starting to be in trouble. Usually we're working on like editing or recording a podcast or some sort of work. Like we invest in real estate together. We're working on that stuff on the weekends, right? But for everybody else who doesn't have some sort of arrangement like that, I do think it's important to have some guardrails in your life, because you do a little bit of work on Saturday, a little bit of work on Sunday, and then all of a sudden it didn't feel like a weekend anymore. Even if it's an hour, it feels like your emotional energy, your attention, your like the cognitive load got pulled a little bit back into work. And so what I usually suggest people do is, hey, at 4 or 5 p.m. Sunday night, look forward at the day, time block it out for an hour, plan your day, get yourself in the right head frame, make sure you have your prep done, and then close the laptop with ample hours to sleep. If you do all that stuff at 8 p.m. on a Sunday, then you're going to be jarred as you go to bed, and you're not going to start your week off on the right note. From 4 to 6, just do a little bit of work to get yourself in the right head frame on Sunday, and then shut it off, and then keep your Saturdays protected if you can.
Do you do the same, Nick? Do you take a slightly different routine to that, or are you doing the exact same thing?
I got a pretty similar one. So Saturday mornings is usually when I'll take care of any spillover from the week. And that happens because, like Armand said, we've got a real estate gig we're going, we've got full-time jobs and quotas to hit. And then we also run a podcast, and then we do fun things like this during the week. So there's naturally a little bit of spillover. And I figure, all right, I'm going to have a coffee anyway and be caffeinated. And my routine is usually blast out a bunch of work in the morning. So I'm just going to carry that over to Saturday. So Saturday, wake up, get a little bit of work done with my coffee, and then I cut off. And then I'm not looking at my email. I'm not doing any work until Monday morning. I'll do that planning exercise on Sunday evening where I'm looking ahead to the week and I'm mapping those things out. But between Saturday at like noon and Sunday, when I'm doing that 6 o'clock exercise looking ahead to the week, there's nothing being done. And honestly, a lot of weekends I'm shutting my phone off completely. And if people need to get a hold of me, they know they should call my girlfriend, and maybe she'll try to grab me. But I'm not looking at my phone. I spend Monday through Saturday and a half staring at screens. I'm going for a bike ride. I'm going for a hike. I'm doing something to get away from the screens, because I think they can be really draining if you don't spend some time doing that.
So maybe for folks who don't have a side hustle or something like that, not everybody has a podcast, let's say. So if you just work your sales job throughout the week, what's your advice for those folks? Because yours is a little bit different where you have a few different things going on. Is it best to keep your Saturday and your Sunday completely free, completely recharge the batteries and just leave it be, go have some fun, spend some energy, get out. Like you said, maybe minimize your screen time. Is that a good idea?
Well,
or should we maybe use a bit of Sunday to do it instead of the mornings? What's the balance there?
Ollie, it depends on what they want for their life. If this is somebody who has aspirations to launch a podcast, maybe they need to spend Saturday working on it. But if you're somebody who doesn't, then yeah, I think that's the boat. Draw the lines. You don't touch this stuff on Saturday and Sunday. But it all depends on what that person wants. So you can't just give it a blanket answer.
Love it. Armand, do you feel the same about that?
Yeah, I would say it's the same thing. It's all about how hard, where you want to be in life. If you want to just carry your book and go be a top producer, then you don't have to record a podcast on the weekends. It's not mandatory. You don't have to do that stuff. Trust me, it's a lot of work. So don't sign yourself up for it if you're not totally into it.
I know personally podcasts are quite a lot of work. They're really rewarding, just like doing something like this. It's super fun, and I think you learn a lot from doing it, but you got to pick your battles a little bit. So with that, guys, I think we're coming towards the end. So maybe let's start with Nick. If there's one thing, just one, that you want everybody here to take away from this, what would you say is your one big lesson to take away?
Discipline is doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it.
We got to get a quote made out of that, guys. Okay, Armand, what's yours?
I won't be as brief, but the death of every rep is when their day starts to linger and the water cooler chats begin and all that nonsense. And what I would push everybody to do is, in any time you are not meeting a customer, I would push you to have a ticking time bomb in your head to say, hey, what am I doing to get in front of more customers right now during the hours of 8 to 3? Because if you're burning those 8 to 3 hours doing proposals and recap emails, you're going to be in for a ride, and you're always going to be that 80 to 90% of quota performer.
All right, I love it. Okay, so I'm going to give a personal shout out. This is not in the script at all, but everyone watching, if you go and listen to one podcast for the rest of your life, apart from the Inside Sales podcast that I didn't pronounce with the same vigor as Daryl does, but make it the 30 Minutes to President's Club, okay? I promise you, I've listened to it. It's stellar. These guys, they keep it really short and succinct. There's no fluff in it. I know it's edited down, so it's maximum 30 minutes roughly. And the guests, top dollar, okay? I can't endorse it enough. So guys, go check it out. But apart from that, maybe Armand, you want to start. Where can the folks reach out to you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's usually the easiest way to get me. There's only one Armand Farouk. My name is spelled sort of weird. And so add me on LinkedIn. Would love to connect with y'all.
And Nick, what about you, man?
I mean, it's the same deal. There's plenty of Nicks, but there's only one Sigelski. So get with us on LinkedIn. I'm amazed at how many people listen to our show and then aren't connected with us on LinkedIn. And it's always sort of awkward when I see someone who's a 5th degree connection on LinkedIn being like, I love this show. I'm like, why didn't you connect with the host? So yeah, get with us on LinkedIn. I like talking with people.
All right, great stuff, guys. I can't thank you enough for being here. This has been awesome stuff. Hopefully, everybody here has learned a whole load of stuff that they can apply literally today, not even tomorrow. I know I'm going to start playing maybe a little bit of PlayStation earlier in the day so I can cut off, like Arman said, bit of anti-screen time before bed. Hopefully, my Saturday and Sunday, I'll do a little bit just to get myself ready. That's what I'm going to plug in straight away. But everybody, please go connect with these guys. I can't tell you enough how just top dudes they are. The podcast is phenomenal, like I said. And with that, let's wrap up. So, like I mentioned right at the start, you will get a recording. Just watch out in your email inbox. It's coming, and hopefully we'll have a couple clips made out of this webinar, and we won't see the end of it. It's going to be around for a while. So, thanks very much for watching, everybody, and we'll see you real soon.